Birmingham, Alabama is brimming with design inspiration. Prepare to become charmed by an eclectic 1920s home inspired by mid-century modern design. And then we'll step into a Tudor home dotted with the most amazing patterns and original artwork, plus a custom-built home filled with an incredible collection of antiques. It's all on today's episode of Homeworthy. Enjoy! Hi, I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we're now offering a membership plan that gives our supporters early and exclusive access to new videos.
Hi, Homeworthy.
I'm Roz.
You're here at my home in Los Angeles?
Come on in. I can't wait to show you around.
With this membership, we invite you to open more doors, discovering new homes, rooms, and personalities available only to those with the keys to our guest house. You'll be part of a community of people who are just as passionate as you are about interior design. To access all of this exclusive content, simply click the Join button below to become a member today. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm James Carter. Welcome to my Birmingham home. Please come in. My name is James Carter. I'm an architect living here in Birmingham, and so welcome to Birmingham. I always have had an interest in houses, and when I was a little boy, I used to ride my bike around whenever they were building a new house and try to figure out the floor plans. This is back when I got in trouble for doing that. But I really never had any doubt that I would not want to design houses. And so I went off to school, and after graduation came to Birmingham and was fortunate enough to work for a very well-established and talented firm of architects doing primarily residential design. I worked for them for about 10 years and decided it was time for me to try my own thing. So I guess around 1990, I established James F. Carter, and we only do residential work, and we try to do as few as we can a year. And we've done houses everywhere around the country, but primarily in the American South. We do a lot of repeat business. I'll do someone's main home, and then they're nice enough to ask us to do a second or a third, and we call these people repeat offenders. But it's nice. Our work is very intimate, and you get to know your clients quite well. And I am only an architect. I am not an interior decorator or a garden designer, but I have a huge interest in all aspects of the product and find that they all must work together. I work basically, work is my number one hobby, and I can work as much as I'm allowed to work. My second hobby is travel, and that's primarily to see the work of other people. And third, I love to collect books and read, and that's pretty much all about 1 and 2. And so I'm also a collector. I love to bring things back from trips and travel to things, and I love the idea that everything has some meaning to me. It may not be extraordinarily sentimental, but I can tell you pretty much where everything in this house came from over the last 30 years. Well, the house was completed in 2013. I bought the property in 2000 and lived in a little house on the property with the idea of tearing it down. And I kept filling it up with things, but the poor little house, I never really did any maintenance. And there were some great stories about when the ceiling fell in the laundry room and I just mopped it up and kept on going. And we had light fixtures falling off the house. And in the 10 years I lived here, I had the exterior painted twice, but only on the front. So by the time I left, it was about to fall in. And whenever it would rain, I would go around with a flashlight and check the ceilings to make sure I didn't have any drips. So, the plans, if you've learned as you get older, plans don't ever go through the way you thought. I thought I'd be in the house for 2 years and then I'd start this one. And I was here probably at least 10 years. And then it took 3 years to build. There's a lot of detail in here, and I was having good friends help me with the work, and so that always takes longer. But I told somebody, having lived in apartments and then in a little house that was sort of at best a cottage, the first morning you wake up and you walk around the house with a cup of coffee and the house is warm on a cold day, or the first time you look at it and you see the sprinkler system going off, watering the lawn, you feel like you've kind of made it somewhere. And I used to travel a lot and get in a great shower or a great bed and wish I had one like it, and now I do. Welcome to my entry hall. People who have not been here don't realize that Birmingham is rather mountainous. And so my house is built into the side of a hill. And so much like a New York townhouse, you enter on the lower level, which is here, and then you go up the steps to where everything else happens. So this level is basically nothing but storage, future office if I want one, the garages and things like that. But I think an entrance hall always has to make a really strong statement and tell you something about the house. The things in here that I love the most, first off, the floor. I had someone tell me when I was planning this that checkerboard floors had gone out of style. And I thought that was the most absurd thing I'd ever heard. So that kind of cinched the deal for the floor. But I tend to gravitate toward pieces of furniture that have a lively silhouette from a distance. Things like these shield back chairs here. They have a nice line from a distance, and then when you get up close, they have a little bit of detail, which is very nice. And when I was thinking about it for this interview, I realized almost everything I own has a distant view and a close-up view. And so this chair here is a typical example. I love these rondelle portraits. They're bronze. I think they're French. They are all based on the idea I like seeing something across the room that draws your eye in. And then when you get there, they have something going on that you can enjoy. But there are 3 things in here that I'm particularly proud of. When I was a little boy, I was in New York and was at the Carlisle Hotel and saw a pair of Eagle-style consoles. And they used to be in the little vestibule off the elevator. And I thought they were the coolest things I'd ever seen. And over the years of my learning about architecture and interior design, I realized that my favorite architect, David Adler from Chicago, and his sister, Frances Elkins, used these consoles a lot. And so I decided one day that I had to have some. So around 2008, a pair came up that were within my price range, and I purchased them upstairs. You'll see them in a moment. They're the real thing. But I was in an antique shop with a friend of mine in Atlanta and saw this console, and it was painted gold, not real gold. And I looked at it and I could tell that it was not a particularly old one, but I found out it was one of those consoles that I had seen in the Carlisle. And so I said, load it up, it's mine. So I did paint it white, but I thought it was amazing. And this is one of the first things I remember seeing as a young man that I really thought was cool, that I wanted one. It represents what I like furniture to do, and it has a strong shape, and it has nice detail up close, and it's sort of timeless. And the fact that they've become popular again in a lot of decorating, maybe they never went away, it's just typical of good design. One of the things that I always wanted for my house was a tall case clock. And I never had quite the time to get one. I had other things I was focusing on. And during COVID, I became more interested in auctions. And this clock came up for auction in New York, and it had exactly what I wanted. It was the right period. I like things from around 1780 to 1820. And it was made in London, and I liked it because of the simple, strong face. I bid on it, and to some amazement, I managed to get it. They brought it down, and we had it bolted to the wall the way you're supposed to. And it has to be rewound every week, but I am amazed at how accurate the thing is, given that it was from 1790, supposedly. I have a tendency to collect themes, and I was on a trip several years ago for a friend's birthday in Europe, and I bought a walking stick. And the next thing I know, I bought this walking stick. which was made by the man who did Queen Victoria's. And then I started looking for walking sticks with a vengeance. And so now I have numerous ones that I've collected over the years. A lot of them are dogs. This walking stick, which is a frog, was very similar because my father called me Frog when I was a little boy. And so I had to have this walking stick. And then recently, a friend gave me this one, a crab claw, because they've said as I get older, I become more crabby. The urn here behind us was something I bought in Paris, and it's a Louis Philippe. It's a toll water urn, and normally they sit on a little box, and I think water comes out. But I loved it, and it's got a liner in it, which sometimes we put flowers in it. I don't. The people that do the flowers do. But I brought this back in on the plane, and I'm amazed at what Delta has allowed me to bring back over the years. Recently, I brought a big painting back, and I don't know why they let me do it. This was another auction find. It is supposedly painted by a well-known portrait painter from the, I guess, turn of the 19th century. But I bought it because I like the way the man's cravat is rendered. He's got about 14 different whites, and I just thought it was really a well detailed picture. I hope one day to find out that it is even better than I'd like to think it is. So there's a problem in this house. Everything in my house I like to call is scratch and dent, which means if it hadn't been dropped or rolled down the hill at least once, I usually can't afford it. I actually, although the house is all my taste and my selections, I did, collaborate with one of my friends who's a decorator. All the furniture in the house was pretty much bought by me. But what my friend Jane did was she helped me organize it. And so it was a collaborative effort. The only thing different from what we would normally do for a client is I got the final say on everything. This is my stair landing, also my sort of small library here. As I mentioned earlier, I really like to read. And I collect everything from biographies to history. I don't do novels, but I always enjoy reading about architectural design, and so I have a little bit of everything here and there. And on the walls here I have some early maps. The two in the middle were before the country was a country, and so it has all the Indian nations, which I'm very proud of. And the one on the top belonged to my grandfather, so I sort of made them a combination of a little bit of everything. One of the most important things you can have, I think, in a well-designed home is light, and light coming from different directions. And so I did not want to have this be just a blank wall with something on it dark. So I put in a window in the bookcases which opens through to another window which looks out on the property to the side. And the idea is mainly to introduce light from not only 1, 2, 3, but 4 directions to make the house a bit more cheery and upbeat. One of the things that happened early alone, I mentioned to a friend of mine that I was going to be reusing this Amari lamp that belonged to my grandmother. And they were like, I can't believe you're going to use that. Those are so old and dated. Nobody collects Amari. So my design friend Jane and I decided that we would basically do the entire second floor around this vase. So it was the one that inspired the color scheme of everything. And I did that just so people could say, you can actually use Amari in a new house. There's a lot of things here. I bring souvenirs back. These are old watercolors. This came from Switzerland. This is a little watercolor of a palace in St. Petersburg. I love souvenirs, and there's always something in my luggage when I'm coming home. Over here on this side, we've got a Swedish mirror. We've got an Italian table. We've got some, I think those are pin boxes I bought from the estate of Mario Boita. There's an obelisk here that I just ordered. And then oddly enough, of course, there's a drain from a broken sink. So that's there too. The flowers were done by my good friend Mary Donnell. I could not put a flower in a vase and make it work if my life depended on it. But I do think flowers add so much to a room and give the room life, which is what I'm always trying to do. The rest of these drawings, these are all original watercolors that I've collected over the years, not by me, but they reflect my interest and years and years of collecting. Well, besides the obvious, it's the only time I ever got to have exactly what I wanted, as opposed to having to bend to my collaborating decorative friends or decorative landscapers. I think it's mainly because it's surrounded by everything in the house means something to me. The chair behind the camera was my grandmother's. The pictures on the wall in there, some of those were taken directly from both grandparents. There's a boxer dog up there. My grandfather loved his boxers, and he raised them. And so I look at the dog and it reminds me of him. So for me, my house is basically as a time capsule of my whole life. Welcome to my library. This is where I spend most of my time if I'm not working at the office. This room is full of a lot of things that mean a great deal to me. Some big things down to small things. I bought these Scottish prints on the wall. They're prints designed to look extraordinarily 3D. I bought those back in the 90s. The convex mirror here, I saw one night in a shop in London right when the dollar and the pound were at its worst, and yet I could not get it, so I got it. I've been collecting martini shakers over the years. This is about half what I've got. And they're all on top of this old, I think it's Irish table that I bought from a friend, a dealer. No one else had a room large enough for it. And the chairs on either side are Chinese Chippendale, and I've always had a love of Chippendale. Most people don't care for it that much, but my friend who was working with me on the project, Jane Hoke, found these in Atlanta and basically knew enough to load them up and bring them because she knew I wanted them, and she was correct. I drink everything from a martini to a gin and tonic to scotch, just depends. The bar's a little low because of COVID. I used to have more alcohol, but I'm trying to replenish. I may have mentioned earlier that I have this passion for Egyptian revival. And those are, I have a pair of terracotta sphinxes that I think were originally in a garden, but they're too delicate to be in a garden. I have one here and I have one in my office, but I have a thing for anything that is Egyptian revival. Early on, before I built this house, my friend Jane said, quit buying so many small things, you need something large. So I found this English cabinet and decided that would be my large thing. We also figured out it was a great way to hide the TV. So this room was designed around this cabinet and this table and those pair of consoles over there. Everything else was just brought in, but I had already, most of the furniture I had, so when I was designing the room, I knew exactly where it would all have to go. This is a painting by a follower of Canaletto. I've always loved the work of Canaletto, so I sadly cannot afford one, but this is a man who was a contemporary who was basically copied Canaletto's style, which became very popular. This chair is particularly precious to me. This was a chair that belonged to my grandparents. My grandmother used it when she was paying bills and writing checks. Jane, my designer, suggested I reupholster it in a more stylish pattern. It used to be in blue damask, and so I'm so happy I did because it's given it a whole new life, and it's made me extra proud of it. This is a little cast iron dog I found in Charleston, and he was so heavy. I don't know what he's made out of it besides cast iron, but I had to have him. And the best thing is he doesn't wet the rug and he doesn't bite. When I got out of school, I always thought that I might end up in Virginia or Maryland area because I have such a love of history and frankly a love of the architecture. Of course that didn't work out, and I think it was the right decision, but I decided when I was building this house that I would do a house very much inspired by the architecture of that area. And so there's a house in Maryland that I really liked, and so much of the molding and the detail in this house was patterned on that work. I knew that I wanted to do a mantle, and I wanted to have an elaborate overmantle because most of my clients won't let me do that. It's a bit too extravagant, and I knew I was only going to have this one fireplace that I really wanted to set it off. So we designed everything around the mantle, and then the painting I had bought in London. It is a fairly well-known artist who did all the paintings at Trinity College, the portraits. And years ago, this room was in a magazine with my Christmas tree, and I got a phone call from our art expert in London who said, I know about your painting, and he gave me the whole spiel. It's not the best painting in the world, but now it means extra more to me because it does have a very interesting history. As I said earlier downstairs, I have always had a passion for Eagle William Kentish style consoles. And these pair came up I guess in early part of 2000, and I jumped on them, and at the time they were far beyond my means, but I had to have them. And I've never regretted it, and I designed the entire room around this pair of consoles. The lamps are by my good friend Chris Spitzmiller, and then the drawings above it are ones I collected in France, primarily France, over the years, with some weird accessories. These are micro mosaics. There's a wonderful ball clock over there that I got from Niall Smith. And Niall has always been another destination that I loved. And I also have a huge interest in anything Grand Tour. So you've got these obelisk, there's one in the yard. You've got Trajan's column. And then you've got these small micro mosaics that sort of reinforce that theme. So really, if there's anything Grand Tour and not nailed down, I will try to buy it and take it. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of talented friends, and many of them have written books. And of course, I insist on getting a signed copy. And the books that are particularly dear to me are all right here on this table. But when I have a party, of course, I have to pass out coasters because I can't let anybody ruin the books. But if you've written a book from me, your book is here. And signed somewhere in this pile here. I have a thing for pieces of furniture that do things like rise up, tilt over, swing around. And this is I guess, early 19th century French writing architect's table or drawing lectern. And I found this, and it was at home. I really liked the people, and so I bought it from them. And I keep some of my nicest books here. This is a very rare book. This is a book on the work of Mellor, Meigs, and Howe. And it's all a book on one farm that was built outside of, it's in Lavrock, Pennsylvania. And the farm only existed for about 10 years, I think, and then was torn down. But it's one of my favorite books that I have. I think unless you're on the run under sort of the FBI relocation program, I think it's nice to have something from your past. Not everybody's fortunate to have beautiful things. I got that, I understand that. But I think it's nice when you can have a piece of your history. It's the same way that people name their children after previous generations. I think that's always lovely. It kind of gives someone sort of a grounding and an establishment. And to walk in here and see, and again, I'm surrounded things from the last 50 years of my life. And so I really like having that. And it's sort of, I can't imagine if walking into a room that I did not know something about almost everything in there. It'd be like being in a hotel. In the original plan of my house, this was going to be a small office where I could work at home at night. And I learned early on that I would never do that. I'd rather just stay at the office and work and then come home and separate myself from whatever was keeping me going that day. So it's become sort of an annex library. I have a lot of my design books in here, as well as a wall of family photographs. I consider myself to be the sort of keeper of the family photographs. This is a Regency writing desk, again, that tilts up. It's one of my favorite things I have. And on it are my parents, myself when I was much younger, my grandfather who made me bald. This is a steer horn that my grandfather brought back from a medical convention in Mexico City, in the 30s. I had to have this. And these are all my family. Welcome to my kitchen. It's a sad tale because I don't really cook. But I have had some amazing parties here, and people like to gravitate around this big counter because it's easier than trying to sit down. And when I designed this house, I designed it for casual entertaining, so I have a glass porch, screened porch, right off this through these glass doors. I was visiting some friends of mine years ago in Maine and admired their Butler's pantry, which had black cabinets and mahogany tops. And I never quite forgot them, so when it came chance to design my own kitchen, I did the black cabinets and mahogany tops and stainless steel in honor of what I saw in Maine. So I'm most grateful, guys. Thank you. Well, I think a home is really supposed to sort of be an indicator and a frame of your life or the person who lives there. And so because my home is probably the result, decorative-wise, of 30 years of collecting, I think people instantly get some sense of who I am. And I think that's always nice. I don't like walking into a house that looks like it's was all bought in one weekend at the Decorative Arts Center. I like houses that have that collected look. And I will say this house looked pretty much like this 6 months after I moved in, because before it was built, I spent 30 years buying things for it. Everything was bought into kind of place in the house that was in my head. And I think that's important, is I like houses that are not generic. I like them to be very personal. This is my porch. Every house in the South needs at least one porch. And I've been very pleased with this one. I wish sometimes I had a fireplace out here, but what it does is it has the fountain on one side and easy access to the kitchen for something to eat or drink, but it's been very successful with my friends. Originally, there was going to be a fireplace on this wall, and I realized not only was it really kind of beyond my budget, it was also a way to kill the view of the yard. And so I changed it to this more Jeffersonian arch ceiling with the half light, round light at the top to let light in and make it more light. And I'm very glad I did not do the fireplace. I think it had been too much for me. This is sort of my serving butler's pantry. I don't have a butler and barely have a server, but it's a place for me to stage things for the dining room here. I think earlier someone mentioned about china. I don't really get into china, but whenever I see a good deal, I will pick it up. So I've been collecting Spode Grecian over the years, which is kind of a nice kind of Beaux-Arts paper. And then I found several estates that have closed out. I believe these plates are particularly nice. They're so delicate, I don't use them very often because I don't want to break them. But then I have a whole lot of these, and they seem to be pretty much bulletproof, so they're the ones who get used the most. And this is my dining room. I'm more of a TV tray kind of guy, but this room is here when I do need it. I made the room octagonal for several reasons. I particularly like an octagonal room or a round room, and this seemed to be the perfect reason for doing it. The screen there is French, and it's the only place in the house I had a wall large enough for it after I put all the other stuff in. But the table is French. The cellarette belonged to the architect Philip Schutsey in Atlanta, one of my idols. So I'm very happy to get that. The silver tray was a gift from my dear friend, the late Julia Reed, who I miss terribly. And the chairs are actually new chairs that I had painted. And oddly enough, they look like they're covered in red leather, but that's not red leather. That is latex paint over white vinyl. And I did it because I had to have it done for a party. And the first night I walked in and saw a lady in white pants sitting down on my painted chairs, I got really worried, but the paint has held up. And that was 8 years ago. So I probably will never ever upholster these chairs in leather at all. I bought these at auction recently. These are Fitzhugh, and they're armorial, and the crest has something to do with the Dutch royal family. But these are things you pour hot water in, and they keep the plates warm, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, they're in my favorite color, which is orange. And so those were, nobody else seemed to want them, so I got them. And in here, I wanted to paint the room orange from day one, and Jane suggested we go with this bit softer color, this apricot color. And then I think together we came up with the idea that it'd be really cool if it were lacquered. So we lacquered it with the idea that it would be particularly pretty at night for the few times I have a dinner party. This is one of the few hallways in my house, and I decided to make it something of a mini art gallery. And these are all Grand Tour gouaches, which is a type of watercolor from Italy. And almost every one of them has a night scene or a day scene of a volcano exploding. But more for me, they have a lot of blue light, and I think the blue reminds me of the beach and the water and the Adriatic, and so all of that is something that I enjoy seeing. I particularly enjoy seeing the ones at night, but these were all meant to indicate to people that you had been to Italy and Naples and seen and done sort of a grand tour. I just like a certain sense of continuity. If I could have found a house in Birmingham that was an old one that I liked, I would have probably bought it because I love the bones of an old house. But many of the ones I looked at were either not in a great location, or they were in such poor condition I would have spent a fortune. So at a certain point I realized I had to create what I wanted. And that allowed me to basically get as little as I needed, and I don't have a lot of extraneous rooms I don't use. I live alone, and so this house is like a really large condo. But there are rooms upstairs and downstairs for people if they want them. Guests stay upstairs, of course, usually. But the house was designed for me, very much like a custom suit. Oh, pardon me, you're in the powder room now. When we were coming up the design for this, I had originally wanted some kind of interesting chinoiserie paper or something, and my designer, Jane Hoke, said, why don't you try Italian cork? And I fell in love with it. I have a slight interest in 70s kind of glamour design, and so one of my favorite things in this house is this cork wallpaper. And we mixed it in with other things. Most of the art here, more of the gouaches. There's a small oil painting, a French one. This is the only contemporary painting in the house. It's French and from the 40s. And I bought it in Charleston at the antique show there, and I've been in love with it ever since. And it's sort of a joke. I have it behind the door in the powder room because most of my guests don't expect to see anything new in this house. But over the next couple of years, one of my goals is to introduce more of this type of thing in the house to sort of update and kind of give the house a new look and a new life. Welcome to my bedroom. This is on the main level of the house and convenient for a rapidly aging architect. This room, when I was a little boy, I had the most beautiful room. It's a big rectangle shared with my brother. And my brother moved out and I was left with the biggest room any boy could ever want. But I always wanted a bedroom upstairs in the attic because I thought that would be more interesting. So I designed this house such that even though my bedroom is on the main level, it feels like it may be in the attic. And so everything was designed to make it as cozy as possible. This fabric, which is from Robert Keim, was the only floral that I really, really liked. And I liked it with the dark green. And people wonder if I'll ever get tired of the dark green, and I say there's no way I ever will because I love it so much. The bed was designed and inspired by one at the Sleeper Museum in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I thought it was the coolest idea in the world, and it was a great way for me to get a 4-poster bed, not unlike the one I had at home, but this one is designed to fit the break of the ceiling. One of the things I liked about the ceiling in this room is it allowed me to do something particularly charming. So once you're in the room, you see my fireplace, the ever-present bookcases that I have in the house, as well as the arch door going back into the main part of the house. But for me, it's the perfect size room. It's very cozy, and I've got my wingback chair that belonged to my grandparents there in case I ever want to sit down and read. Oddly enough, I put a television in this house, and in 10 years, this television has never been cut on. I can't understand why, but I've never used it. But under it is a wonderful cast iron bear that belonged to my friend Julia Reed's grandfather. That when it was up for auction, I don't think very many people knew what it was, and so I managed to get it. And then beside that, I have my grandfather Lazenby, who managed to make me bald at an early age. So thank you. This is my dressing room area, and I am not really a bathroom person. I wanted my dressing room to feel pretty much just an extension of my bedroom. So instead of having cold marble floors, I have wood floors, and then I put my sink in with my clothing and kept the toilets and showers and everything like that completely separate. So it doesn't look like a bathroom, and that was done on purpose. We upholstered the walls in this Schumacher stripe, and then we went back to the floral from the bedroom, and then a friend of mine had suggested collecting silhouettes, so I've been collecting silhouettes. So again, another collection that I pull together now and then whenever I see one. Home is, I I would say it's the vessel that you live your life. Years ago, I read an article about where the person was saying he was trying to sort of create a backdrop. And I think a well-designed home is the backdrop for the lifestyle and the personality of the people that live there. If you are a prisoner of your own home and you feel you must adapt to your own home, I think it's probably something slightly amiss. The people that I admire sort of command their homes, and even if they're very large ones, and live in them, and it's their place and it's their nest. And I admire that and try to somewhat emulate that in my house on a smaller scale.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Patty B. Welcome to our home in Birmingham, Alabama.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, I'm Patty B. Driscoll. We are here at our house in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm an artist. I have always made art and have an MFA in textiles. And since then, I've gotten more involved with painting, and I do still life paintings and sculpture. I've just recently started a hardware business called Agatha Studio, where I'm designing door knockers and cabinet pulls is my most recent thing. So I focused on textiles early on and had my MFA in weaving. I did large ikat installations in the Bay Area back in the 90s. So I was very involved with fiber art, but I was always kind of bridging this gap between design. I did restoration work on antique Persian carpets, and I worked in the Dongia showroom in San Francisco. So I've always kind of been involved with design, but I'm not a designer. I'm a full-time studio practicing artist. So on December the 8th, 2013, we were down in downtown, which is close by, at a Lessons and Carols Christmas program where our daughter was singing, and we had all of our phones cut off because it was being filmed for PBS. And lightning struck our house during that time. Our house was built in 1925, and it actually, we think it struck outside, and the fire started in this room where we're sitting. The sofa that would have been right here actually burned to the ground. It all worked out in the end, but it was a big hiccup in our life, and took us 2 years to rebuild. During the fire, our dog and 2 cats at the time were inside the house, but they survived and were rescued about 4 hours into the fire. And we lost everything on the attic level, and then pretty much everything else was saved but ruined by water and fire. So anyway, that's kind of changed the trajectory of a lot of things that we've done in our lives. And but we love our house and we love the rebuild. So, in wondering if we were going to rebuild or not, we never really questioned that. We immediately, standing outside in the rain, watching our house burn, we said, we're going to rebuild it exactly. We love this house so much from the get-go. It's really an incredibly unique house. We're the 4th people to live in it. We made very complicated decisions to go back exactly with the molding. The only thing we changed was a little bit of the footprint, where we really maintained all of the original parts of the house, but where there was some exterior areas within the design of the house, we grabbed that space and used it and made it better. So it's very original, and in some ways I think it got better. We put in windows that were more similar to the old house and like what it was in the 20s. So it's just been a great project. Welcome to the entrance hall. This is one of my favorite rooms. It's this kind of cool, icy lavender color called Fading Frost that's from Mystic Paints. This area ends up being a huge hub when we have parties. I often serve a punch bowl here. It's in the dining room right now, but it's fun to introduce a party with a cocktail, little special cocktail or something as everyone comes in. Love this banister that survived. Everything in this room survived our fire. So everything you see, archways, banister, we pulled the doors out like about 3 days after the fire. The doors are gorgeous, so happy we were able to save these. This is one of my favorite pieces in the house. It's a Regency console from England. I have a lot of auction finds that I ended up doing a lot of auctions after the fire because we had to fill things up. So these dolphins have become a big inspiration for me and have led into some designs that I've done with my hardware, which I'll show you later. This is one of my paintings that I just had a show last year in Tuscaloosa, and I realized in 2018 I had a big show and I sold all of those paintings, which was great, but we didn't end up with any paintings in the house. So I kept all of the paintings from this past show just to show you. This is one of, I collect a lot of silver, and so does my mother, but this is one of these little pieces of silver that I did this arrangement in and then blew it up and photographed it and then painted it really large. And this is in a Stanford white frame. I buy a lot of frames at auction, and then I size my panels to the antique frames. And this is a composition about Evelyn Nesbit, which is supposed to be responding to the frame. That's a whole long decorative arts history. I've got some more artwork over here. This was my grandmother's bench, and when the fire happened, the firemen came through the front door, and I don't know what happened, but a lot got crunched here. And so several legs were broken in this little chinoiserie piece, and my grandmother's cane stand used to be here, and it got demolished, and several of her canes. Some of these canes are hers, and I bought this at auction with a bunch more of other canes and some of my favorite umbrellas. This is one of my pieces from 2016. It's a cake stand of my great-grandmother's. I have it in the Butler pantry right now. I'll show it to you in a minute. But I got really into Dutch still life, and that's what was happening here. This is one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's my coat closet, which I love having a little splurge spot. So I did a little Hermes wallpaper for that. So this is my grandmother's bench that I covered with an antique toile that I love, that's in these same kind of purple lilac colors that work with this room. This is a piece by Helen Miranda Wilson that I bought from Cape Cod in Provincetown. And this is one of my gilded pieces that's part of my St. Agatha series. And there's a lot of that at the Birmingham Museum of Art. St. Agatha was the patron saint of breast cancer and assault victims. So very female inspired, exciting work that I like. This is my a new piece from Mexico, from San Miguel de Allende, and it's from Michoacan. It's a pineapple, and I just love the textures. I love it sitting in this niche and the way it's working. I hand carried it home. Love it. Lots of things have come out of this. My whole practice working in sculpture and hardware came from having to choose hardware for this house, everything down to hinges and every knob. So I have a binder just on hardware, and that has now led me into, and we'll talk about that later, but it's led me into a whole practice of sculpting and doing foundry work. But we really understand this house now and have made it function so well. When it was framed up, and to go back and see an open frame of a house and utilize spaces that you wouldn't have known that were there beforehand, that's been awesome, just to be able to expand storage. And I have a lot of closets that do different things for me, and it functions really well, and I wouldn't have had that beforehand. So here is our living room, and this is a huge room. For the first few years that we lived here, we just had a ping pong table, and it sat empty, but it was really fun. So gradually we've added different things and layered, and just enjoyed everything about this room. It's so big that I use this half as my studio. This is where all my sketches are, and I'm working on French matting techniques. And This is where my hardware prototypes have come just as of late, where I'm kind of playing with these and checking things out. This is one of my door knockers that's out in the garden. So anyway, this is my inventory right now. This is a piece that I love. It's a George III chinois cabinet that I keep all of my different still life things. It's kind of a curio. So it has all of these super cool little drawers and different things for collecting, and I just love it. I collect a lot of ribbons, and these are pieces, like this is that little cornucopia piece that I used for that still life painting. So I've painted all of these different objects, and there are pieces in here that I love, that I'm curious about, that I'm probably going to use as subject matter later on. This is a painting that I did actually when I think I was 15. Because of the fire that happened in this room, that entire wall over there was covered with art, and it was mostly melted or damaged enough that we lost the bulk of our art. So when I went back to redecorate this room, doing auction finds, this and that, my mother found this in the back of a closet at her house. So up it went. It was never finished, but it was during the Ethiopian famine of, I think, 1985 that I painted that. And then I have a whole collection of frames that are just waiting for still lifes that are above the mantelpiece. That's a painting of Judith killing Holofernes that I bought at auction. And I love early American, early 20th century aesthetic movement. These are just some of my favorite types of frames. I love gilding, and I have a real appreciation for water gilding. And I just can't stop buying these. This is also one of my favorite pieces. This also belonged to J. Hyde Crawford, who was the illustrator that did the Bonwit Teller violets. And I have a whole body of work that's based on Bonwit Teller about those violets, and that's a whole nother story. But this tabaret is one of my favorite things that I own that was from his estate. As far as decorating a room this big, I've looked at Sister Parish, Nancy Lancaster, just all those classic rooms that were big, and how you create different seating arrangements. This area around the bay window has become its own area, and then there's three different clusters going on. The Knoll sofa in this bright magenta, this is a Nina Campbell magenta linen, and it anchors, pulling it out into the room really makes a huge anchor and divides up the space really well. So, I like flow. It seems the more I put in here, it kind of works. We always need more chairs when we have a party and pulling things up, and we've had a lot of people in this room, and a lot of gift opening and things like that. So I mess with it, I overdo it, and then I pull it back down and try to reboot. And this is all in flux right now. Nothing's ever really staying the same. I make a lot of crazy decisions and then kind of rework them. But I try not to be afraid to do it. It drives my husband crazy. I like to rearrange furniture a lot. So this is one of my kudzu paintings that I've framed in wicker. Most people don't know that kudzu blooms, and it's during the time, I always remember it because it's hurricane season. The bloom is this gorgeous magenta that hangs under the wild vine. And a lot of people don't even know what kudzu. Kudzu is an invasive vine that was planted by the US government in the 30s in I think Virginia and South, but it was to hold the soil in place. And now it is growing all over the South, and it's just a very invasive species. But I like using this strong will of kudzu as a metaphor for women. So that's what this piece was about. So this is our sunroom. It was originally an open loggia, and previous owners closed it in, and now we actually have these awesome windows that these open up, which I love, and then it can become a screen porch. So when we bought the house, there were some old 1980s windows that were great, they worked, but this was pretty nice to be able to put in these new windows that feel older. Also, the pool was designed, I think, in the early 80s, late 70s, and it was a whole lot of concrete. So we took half of the pool and made it smaller and put a spa in it, and then planted boxwoods around it and took away all the concrete just so it feels like a garden area. And it just is kind of softened this whole space. I love this room. It feels like you're outside even when you're inside. And we put this monster TV over here. So yes, we watch a lot of TV. This is where I do my binging. Let's head on into the dining room. So I am preparing for a close family friend's baby shower, which we're excited about. And for this party, we're using the punch bowl up here. This is a punch bowl that my mother actually bought when she was 22 in Windsor, England, for my grandmother. So it's really special, and I love having a punch. It kind of sets the tone for a party. I had my niece's bridal shower a year and a half ago, and a tornado went overhead. No one was worried about the hurricane. Just enough fun punch makes everything at ease. So these are all auction and estate sale finds that I've collected over the years. This piece had been gilded and was really, really bright, and it survived our fire and got smoked, so it gained about 200 years in patina. So it's just right now. This room, the dining room was much larger and kind of off-centered, and what we did, we closed it in, made it a little bit smaller, and curved the walls. And as I was saying earlier, this is really my favorite room now. We did this Gracie wallpaper, and it's just my favorite. Just feels like we're in a nest and that bees and birds are flying all over. I made my niece's wedding cake last year that was inspired by this wallpaper, kind of chinoiserie Gracie style. Let's see, what else? This is these are mixes of antiques from my husband's family, so it's a mix of Southern and New England. Dave his family was Boston and Rhode Island. This was his grandmother's, where they used to serve oyster stew out of in Boston. And this was his mother's coffee and tea set, which I just love. It's an old Tiffany piece, and it was a wedding gift from her grandmother in 1959. So anyway, we're gonna have a fun party here. I was pulling out all these linens. My mother collects a lot of linens, and several of these are hers. This table is huge. I bought it again at auction. I think it's 11 feet. So it's hard to find a tablecloth that's gonna work with this, but we've been playing with a lot of the different vintage cloths, and it's one thing I really love is just looking back, the textile work that is done with vintage and antique cloths. This is called a handkerchief cloth, and it belonged to my great aunt Babe, and it's made of multiple handkerchiefs sewn together. She was the registrar at the University of Montevallo, and all of her students made this for her. I just think it's so lovely. Her last name was Hendricks. I think it's exciting that there's an appreciation for linens and antiques. I'm excited about Grand Millennial and people appreciating things. I hope my children start appreciating things like this. This is my mother's with her monogram. And I have a whole linen closet upstairs just full of different things. So we share and trade out for different parties. So these pulls were my first foray into sculpting for metal. I had taught myself how to sculpt really by making, it was during graduate school, I started making cakes and taking them to friends' houses. So I started making sugar flowers and taught myself how to sculpt there. So I really started with sugar, and then we got to the place with the rebuild of this house, and I had pretty much run out of money, and I wanted something like this to feed off of the chinois idea. And I was really inspired by that Regency console. So I wanted dolphins, and I couldn't afford the ones that I liked. And so I decided to learn how to make them. So the artist at Sloss Furnace helped walk me through the process, and I sculpted these in clay first, and then had these cast at Sloss. And since then, that has blown up into this whole adventure with hardware, and so it all started with these dolphins. So the style of the house is, I think, Tudor Revival, which there's quite a bit of that in Birmingham. We have a lot of great Gothic entryways, and what you'll see in the house is all original, and then we took the cues from some of those arches and elaborated on that. So a lot of it, the house had dark floors throughout, which I'm kind of a lighter person. We ended up with this house. I waited for 2 years to buy this house because I was in cahoots with the previous owner, who was a family friend. And so when it came up, it felt so good. Just the energy of this house is so good, and the flow. But there were dark areas. So after the fire, we did things like we made a marble entryway that's gray and white, and we put pine in the kitchen just to lighten the feel of the house. So decorating the home, I had Mary Evelyn McKee as a designer in Birmingham who helped me right when the fire happened, and thank goodness she was there because she helped me make some great decisions and really laid out the bones, and we worked with some really good fabric here. And since then I've been layering. I think I'm definitely a maximalist at heart. I end up kind of working in every bit of this house. I make piles. Right now we're pretty tidy, but I let things unravel. Over here is kind of like a studio. This room is a 20 by 30 foot room, so I ended up making messes everywhere and then pulling it back. But I'm also a lover of textiles, so there's textiles throughout this house. I love to travel, so it's layered upon layered, and gets junky, but I kind of pull it back together again at different times. Well, we can come through from the dining room is the kitchen area, which I love. This holds a ton of people, and it ends up, as always, the party ends up in the kitchen. So it's pretty big. We did light pine wood in here, and it just keeps this really airy and kind of natural. This island was actually made from heart of pine floor joists that we pulled out of the house. So the cabinets, the counters in the Butler pantry and here are this heart of pine, which I just love. Keeps it very cozy and warm, and I love an all-white kitchen, but this is actually multiple shades of gray. All the paint in the house is either Faro and Ball or Donald Kaufman, besides that fading frost. There's some Benmore upstairs. I love picking out colors. It's just one of my favorite things. So there's about 4 different colors going on in here that just kind of balance really well. And I'm preparing cheese straws. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon for the baby shower that's coming up. So this is this very special Swedish, all the new stuff doesn't work. This is a vintage Swedish cookie press that will pump out these old-fashioned cheese straws, which is kind of a Southern prerequisite. Just took a long time to deep dive to figure this all out. So I mentioned Dave cooking earlier. We love to keep this little faux area under this island where we keep our heaviest Dutch ovens, because he will do just a great all-day stew on Saturdays, and he's really the cook. So that's where this all happens. We put in this Leconche stove, which we love, and hard to choose a color that you're gonna live with forever, but this one's working, especially with these Faro and Ball colors that we chose. It just kind of blends right in. So we did no shelves, open shelving, and just kept a really kind of fresh and airy kitchen. Okay, so I wanted to show y'all these because I've talked about my napkin rings in silver that I love so much. I've started block printing this all. I'm making hardware based on some buttons that I found up in our little farmhouse in Maine. That's a whole nother project. But I had this block carved in Jaipur, and that's one button that I've based it on that was actually this big. But so I'm starting this whole different design and using our house in Maine for kind of a lab that I'm going to do fabrics and wallpaper for. So my nephew is getting married next week, and I've block printed napkins for him to go with. I'm so excited about this. And my soon-to-be his fiance, these gorgeous sterling napkin rings with their initials that were already on it. These are from England, and I think they're just going to be so pretty. She likes kind of natural colors, and I just think it's going to be awesome. Kind of old and new at the same time. Okay, I was going to show you a quick little demo of how I do these flower arrangements for this baby shower. So I'm going to use these all these antique baby cups. I also use these on Christmas trees, and it's just fun. So to do a base, like this is a nice little piece of hydrangea that's really fluffy and ends up being a base. This is so easy. And then this little pretty thistle and some delphinium. Kind of make it wispy. You know, it just doesn't need much. I mean, that looks great as is. I also like using herbs. So I've cut mint this morning. And just get a little touch of green. That just kind of does the trick. Easy, easy peasy. A ton of these all over the table are great. Little nosegays. So we have this big farm table that I love. If it's just the two of us, we work on the end of this, but I've set this for family that's coming over. We love Simon Pierce, and I love using these are 19th century French absinthe glasses that are hand blown. So it works so well with the Simon Pierce, it's old and new, but all feels kind of modern and fresh. I love these napkin rings, sterling napkin rings that have numbers on them, which I'm hoping, I wish I'd had time and I would have, my gift to my nephew has his initial on it, but I'm hoping they'll engrave numbers on the back, because if you're having, you know, family or you're at a vacation spot, then you can reuse the napkins depending if they're not overly, you know, soiled, but everyone, you know, you reuse the same napkin if you know your number. Our children always fought for like their certain number that they had on their napkin ring. So I love collecting these. This this is a Nantucket basket that belonged to my mother-in-law that we had up in our bedroom, and when the fire happened, the roof collapsed and completely squished this, which is so sad, but now it's almost become an art piece. It has this beautiful piece of scrimshaw that has the Ferris wheel from, merry-go-round from Watch Hill, and I just love it. So anyway, it lives here, and it's just one of my favorite things. This is one of my paintings that took me a long time, about 6 years to finish it, but it's one of my favorites. These are fava beans that I hand carried from New York home, and the David Austin roses that we grow outside. So I knew I was an artist at an early age, and I think when someone tells you you're good at something, that often turns into your passion. And so I could draw early on, and so I was always taking art classes. I'm not an athlete, I'm not an academic. It was always easy for me to make art. So I've worked in a lot of different mediums, fiber, painting, drawing, sketching. I've taken a twirl with cake decorating, and it always keeps me busy. So right now I have a studio downtown where I paint, and that's my major focus, but then I also have this side business with Agatha Studio. This is the kitchen area, and this is the Butler pantry that we tweaked. It used to be a really skinny hall kind of Butler pantry, and we created actually a full-on room in here, which is so awesome because I do a lot of flowers here. It stays cool. We have this German silver sink that I can just dump all the flowers in and then prep stuff in here. And then after that's done, for this party that's coming up, flowers will be on the table, and I will ice all the Prosecco and lemonade and whatever in here. This silver sink keeps things cold for like 2 days. And I love these. We did not have this in the house beforehand, but it's pretty special, and there are several historic homes in Birmingham that do have it, that are close to this neighborhood. And what's so amazing about it is that you can wash silver, and you can wash china and crystal, and because of the softness of the silver, it doesn't chip things. So this is where cleanup happens. So it ends up being a flower arranging, ice cooler, and then the cleanup spot. And it also ends up being a party central. Interestingly enough, it's kind of big, and we put the freezer in here, and so we divided up the fridge and the freezer, which I think was a really good decision because you're really never going to the fridge and the freezer at the same time. So we bring everything in here, load up the freezer, and it ended up making both of these units look like cabinetry. And this is where I keep all of our different china and silver and different serving pieces down here. This is the piece that's in that painting, which I think is just such a cool silver piece. So I'm probably going to do little pedophores on this. So this was in that painting in the entrance hall. So this is the bulk of my china, this heron pattern. I have a lot of china, but this is the one that stays out the most. And these are different pieces. This is a Jeanne pattern. Those are my mother-in-law's little gilded pieces, and I have another Queen Victoria up here. I love this little sweet French pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the silver closet, which is really kind of my favorite room. This is all covered in Pacific cloth, which is the anti-tarnish cloth, and it matched. I love this color because it was kind of the perfect mint that matched the Gracie. So for the most part, it keeps this pretty fresh. I polish once a year because I am the butler from the Butler pantry. But these are a lot of different pieces, some from Dave's family and some from mine. And like these are my grandmother's goblets with her initial and then our initials, my initials on the other side, which is really fun. And I use a lot of these for my still life paintings. So when people arrive here, I think they love it. The entryway is beautiful, and it's what was designed in the 20s. It's dual levels and these beautiful doors and arched Gothic openings. But mostly, the greatest thing about this house is that it's an awesome entertaining house, and it feels warm. So the lady that I bought the house from, she let me sneak in and see it, ahead of time, and I asked her where she put her Christmas tree, and it was obvious. It's in this beautiful bay window. We host a lot of parties, a lot of family. I'm a member of a big family in town, and so we're having showers. I'm prepping for a baby shower that I'll show you in a little bit. But that's what the house flows and feels really good for entertaining. This is our den. I love all these pocket doors. This is where we live and spend most of our time. This is one of my favorite paintings. It's by Jimmy Lee Sudduth, who was an artist in Alabama, just outside of Tuscaloosa. He's famous for using Alabama mud, red clay, and this was called Whoa, which I love. Bought that when my kids were really little, and we have pictures of them standing next to it, just teeny tiny. Auction finds that are in this house. This is from Mario Boata's auction. There's a Perdonium that my husband bought. It's probably one of the stranger things in that auction. This would belong to J. Hyde Crawford from his estate. Also in here are lots of textiles that I love. We took our kids to Peru, and as I said before, I was a weaver, so at one point I owned 3 looms and was weaving all the time during my graduate work. But these are from a town outside of Cusco called Chinchero, and they're just some of the greatest textiles. So I just throw things over. I did make pillows out of some of them, and these are just kind of loose. This one was done on a backstrap loom, and it's just sitting here, just kind of flopped on, but brings a pop of color, and I love it in here. So as far as mixing patterns and with textiles, I do think there's layering, and you layer and layer, and then at times it can just seem kind of crazy, but you just keep going, and then you pull back and edit it again. These lampshades are new, and I would have thought they were too much at the time with this, but it's all working. Sometimes I think more altogether works better, as long as there's some little thread of unity. So there's a lot of this oxblood that's going on in the weavings and the magenta, and it all seems to be in harmony. So this is one of the first still life paintings that I did. My mother had given me this piece of heron cornucopia for my 30th birthday. So it was in my early 30s when I started doing still life, and so love this, keeping this one close to the family. And then these are other pieces that I've collected from New England. I'm always trying to learn things and figuring things out. We are project people, so we're always trying to dive in and learn about things. I just gave my husband a book on thatching roofs. We thought we might want to try that at some point. And this is a really pretty entrance to the patio. So we're not spending much time outside because it's still really hot in Birmingham, but this is one of our favorite spots, and it's our pool that we painted in this dark blue and set it into stone, so it really just feels almost like a garden piece and doesn't scream pool. It's really small, and we mostly use it for the little spa hot tub here, which can fit about 10 people and has bubbles here, which is nice. So we love this little patio area. It was designed to kind of feel like a rug. So we have this brick lining and then the flagstone around it. We just got this fountain going. But the best thing was these were little windows in the living room, little bitty windows that didn't open. So we were able to tweak that and create French doors here. So this is always a really nice flow through for parties. So as far as the coziness and hominess of a house, I think we do not have wood burning fireplaces anymore. We have these little coal electric fires that are cozy, and I think just having a lot of people in the house makes it lively. And also my husband is a great cook, and he loves to do a great like beef bourguignon or gumbo, something all day Saturday, and making the house smell good. So when the kids are home, we're always doing that. There's football on the TV and just cozy, homey feeling with smells and everything sensory. Well, I love so many things about this home. I think the architecture was beautiful to start with. The molding is incredible. And then the tweaks that we've done are just all the more special. And our dining room is really incredible. We had the opportunity to rework it, so we made it smaller and curved the wall, so it kind of has this nest-like feeling, and we used a Gracie wallpaper. So I think that's my favorite part about the home, but also this home looks big, but it's almost like a really big cottage. You can hear everybody, everything's kind of contained and it has a flow. There's also a lot of great access points where light crosses through the house, and that's pretty fabulous. A lot of it were smaller windows from the 20s originally, so we had the opportunity to turn those into French doors and just create a lot of flow through with light and pattern of people when they're here. And now I'm going to take you into our powder room, which is another one of my favorite small spots. This is one of our favorite things, these little pea Garin birds that were the faucet. My kids joke that when I die, they both want these, but I think the pea Garin really inspired me too to really get excited about hardware. I had just sold a painting right before the fire, and I was like, you know what? I'm buying the pea Garin birds with that money. So I love these. They were a splurge, but they've kind of started my passion for hardware. Love this room. The flooring is this really cool tile. I had originally seen this pattern at the Papacy in Avignon, and I've always loved it. It's a traditional pattern, but it's so modern. And then we covered this was a Mary Evelyn idea. We covered this entire room with this olive suede, and it's just like a jewel box, and it just always feels so good. So we're gonna go upstairs, and I was gonna show you this screen. It was in my parents' bathroom, and I gessoed it and created this Bonwit Teller screen that was part of my series on the violets. But now we're gonna go up to the bedroom. So this is our bedroom, which I love. This is Pale Powder by Farrow & Ball. It was the same color before the fire, and it's been the same color after the fire. It's my favorite color. It's so soothing, and just always makes me feel restful. So this is one of my favorite pieces in the house that we found it was through the Bunny Mellon auction, and this actually was it was a coffee table in her Virginia estate, and it was listed kind of strangely. I think it said 20th century coffee table, but I don't think it mentioned the textile that was actually set into the piece. And I believe that the textile was her mother's piece, and it's just extraordinary work that's going on here. It cost me as much to restore the textile as it did buying the piece, and that's probably why I got it, why it sold cheaply. But I love it, and it fits this room perfectly. So I love this chandelier. This was from an estate sale, but I actually know the family that it came from, and one cousin is a very close friend of mine and remembers it in the dining room of that family. So I love that it's continuing on and living in another old house, and I know its provenance is kind of cool. So this is this pretty little alabaster statue that I found in an estate sale. It was literally in a cardboard box in the garage of that sale, but it's one of my favorite things in the house. And this is a Joseph Albers print. I had another study in yellow that was down in our living room that was destroyed with the fire. That was actually a college graduation gift that my parents gave me. But so I was dead set on finding another Albers, and this one I think works great here. We love this bed. It's all this different patterns of Virginie, and our linens are from Leontine. My friend Jane Scott Hodges in New Orleans was here right before I ordered these and helped me kind of brainstorm on what I was doing for this room. And then I'll take you to the closet. So this is a fire perk that I never expected. We had teeny tiny closets and a teeny tiny bathroom that's now the laundry room. My husband never had a shower for 7 years. He used a handheld shower. So he got an upgrade, and I'll show you that in here. So this is the little dressing room, and this is my closet, which I love. I've kept this very plain and simple with a little bow wood. Colfax and Fowler. So I had these hat boxes made. It's a place up in New Hampshire called Sarah's Hat Boxes that I sent the fabric, the bow wood up to them, and they made these little hat boxes for me, which I love, and I just store different, letters and things like that in here. But working with a lot of mirror helped make the space feel all the better, and just expanded on the feeling, and I love it. It's soothing, and I can pack in here, and it's easy. I also have I haven't shown anyone this really, but I have a packing suitcase closet. So this was really a handy thing after the fire. Just had this little extra space. So I have all my suitcases and travel gear ready to go when I want to go quickly. So I love to travel and love being organized. So these are scarves that I've just made. I had these were based again on the little button design that I found in our barn in Maine. Like that is one button, but I did a repeat pattern, and then I've had these made in Italy that I'm going to be selling on my website, which I love, and they're all these different colors. This is a bag that a friend of mine, Gina Podesta, hand makes. She's in Brooklyn, but also on Deer Isle in Maine. So she hand sews all this gorgeous leather and then does this, I don't know what this knotting is. It's not a weave, but it's some kind of cool knotting. But I just love this. It's my favorite new thing. This is a statue of St. Agatha that I found in Santa Fe. It's from Lithuania, but it's another favorite that I just love having her up here. Kind of keeps things calm. So this is our bathroom, which we really expanded because this used to be an exterior space. And so what we did was just grab this space and utilize the footprint. But now I take baths every night, and it's just kind of my haven over here. So the word home, I think, it is where you are at the moment. And we've lived in a lot of homes. We lived in 2 rental houses and a hotel while we were redoing this house. And I'm pretty attached to both of those houses. They were home at the moment. But this is where we've lived the longest, and our memories are mostly here. So that's the essence of it, the memories made with family.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Paul in Birmingham, Alabama, and welcome to our home. If you'll come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Be sure to visit our website, homeworthy.com, to discover amazing furniture, art, accessories, and more, all handpicked by our editors to help transform your house into a home. All of the items are inspired by the episodes you see here on Homeworthy. Enjoy!
Hi, I'm Paul Bates. I'm an architect in Birmingham, Alabama, and welcome to our home. I share our home with my husband Nashmi Alketby and our two Labrador retrievers, Emerson and Walcott. Our home was built in 1927. That was, as with most cities, Birmingham's sort of heyday, where things were thriving, the houses were beautiful. We had really great architects back in the 20s here. And one day, Nashmi and I, my husband, were driving by, and I said, I would really love for us to live in that house. And we were on our way to a friend's house who lives just down the road. And lo and behold, a few months later, 6 months later or so, it went on the market and we bought it. So we walked in, we only went in it once. We went in it and I'm like, oh my gosh, Nashmi, it's perfect. We can move in it just like it is. So then we bought it, we closed, we went back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? So the walls were nicotine, all the little bit of trim that it had was all dark stained brown. The beams above were dark brown and all kind of dowdy, so we kind of took that and went with it. And here we are today. So I thought we could move in it just as it was, and we ended up basically redoing the entire thing. We gutted it, we replastered the interior, and of course we did all the bathrooms and the kitchen and all. It had a really great layout already, and one of the things about the houses of the 20s that I really love is most of them are really good ones, are one room deep. And with a one room deep house, you get natural light from multiple sides, and that is so wonderful because it makes people happy. It makes me happy, so I know it makes other people happy. Welcome to our living room. We don't have a formal entrance hall. You step from the front door right into the living room. So the house is somewhat casual, as we are as well. So most of the pieces in here I had made by a cabinet maker, furniture maker, Michael Morrow. This little table, I would design it, draw it, which is what I love to do, and then he makes it and does a beautiful job. This is a desk that Nashmi wanted a desk. So I said, oh, okay, cool. So I started out with a desk and I designed two options for him, and he chose this one. And I thought, oh, it'd be really cool if we made it a desk for two. So here it is. It's 10 feet long. It's made out of old oak. We love it. So we don't use it as a desk anymore. It's more of a console. We also enjoy collecting mid-century pottery. And I tend to focus on a man named Herman Collier. And he was a Danish pottery maker, and this is one of the pieces, but we both look for them. There's a lamp in here that is really special to me. Nashmi and I went to Paris, our first trip together, and we walked in our hotel. It was a really, really cool hotel. It was called the Mark, and it was beautiful. I walked in and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It was the most beautiful hotel I'd ever stayed in. It was a small boutique hotel. Turns out it was designed by Michel Bonin. And this lamp was in the lobby, which was set up like a living room. At the very end, there was a pair of them. And I could not that's all I could see, And so I went up to the concierge and I asked, do you know anything about these lamps? They said, we don't, but we'll call the designer. And they called the designer's office, and they were just so nice. They told us where they got them. Of course, it was at the Paris flea market. And so we found us a lamp, and I was really excited about it, and I've loved it. And I now have three. I tend to keep going or we have 3. And another really cool lamp was this one. It arrived and was broken. So I was devastated because I was so excited about it. And I ended up finding somebody that could put it back together. And while he was putting it back together, I said, "Can you build another one?" And he said, "Well, I'll try." He wasn't like, he didn't commit to it. He would just try. And lo and behold, he did. So there's the other one. And the only difference is the new one is heavier than the old one. But anyway, these are lamps I've always loved. Some of these pieces are by Jean-Marc Louis, and that's who Nashmi and I have collected for years. These 2 over here, as well as those 2 there. And they're just interesting. I love the contrast and sort of the earthy colors with the black. And then, these are some really chairs that I love by Illum Wilkelso, I believe is how you say his name, but another Danish designer. And we were in Los Angeles at Gallery Half. And I saw these chairs, and Nashmi and I were there with our friend Betsy Brown. And I said, "Betsy, you've got to come see these chairs. They're the most beautiful things I've ever seen." And so we come in and we look at them. We were all just like, couldn't believe it, thought they were beautiful. And I said, "How much do you think they are?" And she said, $40,000. I said, "Really? Wow." And I thought, well, if they're $40,000, I'm at least going to ask. Well, they weren't near that. So anyway, we ended up with these chairs, and we love them. They're so comfortable, which Danish designers always studied, how you sit in the chair, how it feels. They studied the anthropometrics of the body. Another special chair is this wingback chair here, which I gave to Nashmi for Christmas one year. We always wanted a fireside chair, and it took 3 chairs to get it right, but we got it right this time. This chair came from Rath Gallery in Austin, Texas. A wonderful little mid-century, not just mid-century, but a shop. These urns are really special because of their enormous size, and we have a pair. I always love a pair or 3. One of the things that I do want to talk about would be these screens. This pair of wooden screens that I had made years ago were inspired by doors that were designed by David Adler. And it was the Clow House in Chicago that had these doors. And I remember visiting that house, and the doors were enormous. I mean, they must have been 12 feet tall. And they had this concentric pattern, and I just loved it. So I came back, and I couldn't get that concentric pattern out of my head. And so I ended up doing these, but I did these as a labyrinth. So it starts here, it has a beginning, and it has an end. So it just works its way around until it spins out. And again, these were made by Michael Morrow. And he helped with the finish. And well, Nashmi and I, we didn't like the finish. And so Michael let us come to the shop. We spent a month and a half of our weekends sanding these down. And we didn't know where we were going with it. And all we did was sand the top surface off. And we loved them. So it's really Michael's finish on the base and then ours on the top. I had this sofa built. I don't know why I have to make everything. I think you can buy some things, but this sofa Grant Trick made, and that's Walcott, and he really loves it. He sits there all the time. Wow, well, first of all, I think it was the longest renovation in history. I didn't think it was ever going to end. We started out, we were just going to redo the kitchen because we didn't have any money. We thought, well, we'll just do the kitchen and stop there. Well, it kept rolling. We ended up rewiring it. We put in new air conditioning, HVAC on 3 floors. And when we bought the house, I noticed that there was some termite damage. It was never discussed by anybody, but I was so in love with it, it didn't matter. The backside could have fallen off and I would have still bought the same house. So when we started our renovation, I knew we were going to have to take up the hardwood floors, which was really hard for me because they were beautiful. But we took them up, and it turns out The floor system was just eaten up with termites. We had to reframe the entire main level of our house, which for me was fun. And we had wonderful craftsmen, I do want to say that, and it would not be such a great house today without them. We had a framer, his name was Troy Parker. He did a beautiful job. He helped, as we walk through the house, you'll see sort of shapes in the plaster. Well, underneath those shapes, Troy framed it all. And then we had a plaster person come in on top of that and apply the plaster, the 3 coats of plaster. But anyway, it was really amazing. It was hard, it was slow. Our plaster person, who I just adored, I would come home every day like a kid from school because I was so excited to see them. His name was Norman Ward. Norman said to Nashmi, I know that Paul's going to be my friend when we leave, but I'm worried about you. Nashmi said, Norman, I'll be your friend when you leave. So he was so ready to go. He was in our house 5 months plastering. So it was just, but it was a lot going on. And so I think all the steps were hard, but they were all meaningful. The cabinets were made by a friend of mine that I've worked with for maybe almost 20 years. Since he started his business, and that's how I got to know him. He made all of our cabinet work that you see, all the kitchen cabinets. His name is Michael Morrow of MDM Design here in Birmingham. So I also got interested in furniture, and it seems like when I do something for us, it's like I place all the furniture, and then I ultimately have to have the pieces built, which I love to do. And so Michael is not only a cabinet maker, but a furniture maker. And he makes beautiful furniture. And so he built a lot of the furniture in the house that I'll show you. Someone asked me, David Netto asked me, was there a mistake that, you regretted or a mistake that you made? And I said, oh, yes, there was. So it was the front door. And the front door, I wanted a solid door with horizontal planks of old oak that would match our interior doors. And Nashmi wanted a door with glass lights. Well, you know how sometimes you win the battle and sometimes the other person wins the battle? Well, I won that one, and I got my door with horizontal planks that matched the interior doors, and when it went up, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so dark. So we ended up building that door again. And we did put lights on the top, so Nashmi was right. We put shutters on the inside, and Ken Jones of Woodworking Dynamics is the person that built that door and many doors for me and did many things in this house as well. A wonderful woodworker, and these, I really am fond of woodworkers. My father was a woodworker, and so it's sort of an important aspect of the whole process for me. Welcome to our kitchen. I want to talk a little bit about the cabinetry, its inspiration, and how I wanted this room to not look like a kitchen. This again was taken from David Adler's doors. This is a literal concentric pattern similar to his doors. And everything is made out of white oak, quarter sawn white oak. And I basically, we put a simple finish on it. We try to get to, just an oil finish with a little bit of liming in it, but we just keep it very simple. So the main goal was so that it, since it was right off the living room, I just didn't want it to look like a kitchen with huge appliances. So here we have our island out of this old oak. We have a black oven over here. And so Nashmi came in with a great idea of, hey, why don't we stain the cabinets black to the left of the oven? So we did that, and it turned out great. I had never done black cabinets before, so I wasn't sure about it. So the cooktop, I wanted it to look more like a console. So it's on legs and didn't, make a loud statement that it's a range. And we use this kitchen every single day we cook. I'll tell you, one of my favorite rooms in the house is this little pantry. And it is an instant pantry. It is very small. I think it's like 8 square feet maybe. And where we keep our dishes, I have a tendency to collect these glasses with this gold leaf on them. I love those, and so sometimes I get obsessed about things and I keep going a little too far sometimes. But this is where we have our coffee pot and our tea kettle and things like that. One thing I didn't mention about the cabinetry is the countertops are bronze. And one of the special things here was to do this recessed water line here, reveal. And that was just, more of a traditional element that I've seen for years in stone pieces. So we were able to do that in this bronze to have this reveal around the perimeter. I'm pretty sure they will never do it again. But I love it. I'm very happy with it. And again, bronze countertops here as well. And there's a couple of things that are special in here that I want to mention. It's this lamp. On our first trip to Paris, this was another find. We went to the flea market the same day we were looking for the lamp. And we saw this pumpkin lamp, and I just fell in love with it. And so we decided, let's keep on going. This is our first thing to see here, and we want to see if we find anything else. Well, we forgot about it. A year later, I go back to Paris with Betsy Brown, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Betsy, the pumpkin lamp's still here. And I don't know if that's what they call it, but anyway, so I didn't want to get it just yet, although I loved it. I don't know why I didn't, because it was, again, our first stop. So we spent the rest of the day at the flea market, and I forgot about it by the end. I was too tired. So we get home, and Nashmi and I are going to dinner at Betsy's house. And I said to Nashmi, Nashmi, should I just buy that pumpkin lamp? And anyway, that was on the way to her house. When we got to her house, this pumpkin lamp was sitting on her island. And she gave it to us as a wedding gift. So it will always be something very meaningful and to us both. The interiors, the style is, made up of a lot of things. It's, I like to think of it as timeless and classic, but it also has mid-century pieces in it. I really love mid-century furniture, and I seem to look for it all the time. And we have purchased pieces as we've traveled or as we've seen them. They were by these furniture makers, mostly Danish, from this sort of golden era of mid-century Danish furniture, where it seemed to be most successful, most beautiful, where they studied the body and the anthropometrics to get the positioning right and to make sure it's comfortable. So it served two purposes. It was functional and it was beautiful. Some pieces I enjoy making furniture. These pieces are usually inspired by minimal design, classic pieces, traditional pieces, and then I usually pare them down and try to simplify them. Not intentionally, it just seems to be the way I work. It's kind of a combination of old pieces and new pieces that are made. I just happen to love making furniture and fairly simple pieces, but I like to think that they're elegant and timeless. So it's really an eclectic mix of things, and the flow is always important, the arrangement is always important, it's mostly made up of things we love. This is the refrigerator here, and again, all of the large appliances I wanted to try to conceal as much as possible. So we did this panel on the front, and that's all of our food in there. But anyway, yeah, so the goal was to make it go away. I mean, in a paneled wall. Nashmi is the cook in the family. He is a wonderful cook, chef, and he doesn't necessarily go by recipes. He might read a recipe and then do his version of it, but it's always just wonderful. And we cook here all the time. This is not a show kitchen, it's a used kitchen. I wash the dishes. So that's my part, my contribution. But I tell you, these here are a pair of sconce by Felix Agostini. He was a furniture and lighting designer. He was originally from Paris, and these are really special to me. It's a piece of cast bronze, which is mounted to the wall with the shade above. And he makes, a lot of different styles. But anyway, I found these. They were a great deal, and I absolutely love them. So that's one of the things that's special in this kitchen. I didn't know any architects except Mr. Brady. And I don't know that at that early stage I really thought about it, but my dad was always building something, either our house or someone else's house. And he always had beautiful lumber, like huge heart pine beams and columns and timbers, and I spent a lot of time pulling nails from those timbers. I spent a lot of time moving piles of old brick. And those were the materials he worked with. So those were the materials that I knew. And I think that exposure was probably the seed. And I sort of went from there. But I never really consciously thought, oh, I'm going to be an architect. It's just that I spent time with my dad building things. And I still like to build things. It's exciting, it's fun, it's meaningful, and it makes our lives rich. This is our powder room, and it's very small, but it works great. We found this old stone relic. I think it was some kind of baptismal font or something, and we turned it into a bowl. And then we had this bronze base made to support it. And then of course I love black and white tile, and so I played with the pattern here in the powder room. It was so small I wanted to make it as cool as possible. But yeah, so this is the powder room, and then on to the drawing room, which is traditionally our dining room, and we have it set up as a dining room, but it's also where we both have a desk. This is where I work at night and weekends, where I like to come home and I'll bring things home and work on projects. Obviously, we have a little obsession with books, as most architects do. So we have a huge collection of books, which this table gets tall, and then we clear them off and put them somewhere, and it shrinks. So last night I cleaned this table off, and I know it doesn't look like it, but there's probably twice as many books on this table. But yeah, we literally use this room to work in. We'll dine in here. If we have like parties at Christmas or friends over, we can seat 12 people. So 8 at the table and then 2 at each banquette. We have something that's really special to me are these chairs. And Nashmi and I collected them. They're designed by Carl Clint from the 40s, I believe. 30s and 40s was when all of this happened. But they're just, they're wonderful chairs. We could not afford the entire collection at once. So I asked the dealer, I said, can I buy half of them now and half of them next year? And he let us do that. He kept them, and we bought 4, and then we bought 4 more. You don't know until you ask. But this is my drawing board. This is Nashmi's desk. We found these lamps, wall sconce that I like to think are in the style of Jean Royer, another furniture designer from the same period. They're not Jean Royer wall sconce, but I like to think they are. But they are from the 30s or 40s. They didn't know the exact age, and they do have a lot of age on them. I've always loved this Giacometti plafonnier, and Francis Elkins used them often. And that is where I first saw one. In a David Adler house. Francis Elkins was the sister of David Adler, and she was a decorator from that same time period. And so there was a plaster artist in Brooklyn, and I read on his website that they would make custom pieces for people. So I sent them a picture of this Francis Elkins plafonnier, and I asked if they could make one. And they said, oh, we have one. So I wrote back and I said, oh, but I need one that's 32 to 36 inches in diameter. And they said, ours is 36 inches. So here it is. I absolutely love it. We were so tickled to get it. Yeah, so, you know, all those things, you know, it adds meaning to that piece. You know, the fact that we had to find it. We loved it from the beginning. And again, in here, you'll see some of the mid-century pottery that we have collected, a few pieces. And one thing I got interested in was mid-century modern Danish landscapes. So these are two. So I buy them. It's really inexpensive art. This is, I believe this artist's name is Lily Edge, E-G-E. I may not be pronouncing it right. But you can see these are two wonderful landscapes. You can see the barn in the background. You may not be able to see it. But anyway, it just, you know, it was so wonderful to find these. And it's something that's really inexpensive. And I've loved them. Here's one over here that we recently purchased. But it's so cool, you know, just the earth tones and the greens. And it's just something fun to do. This is a table lamp, a desk lamp by Carr Clint also. And we have a pair of them. And anyway, really love those. This is something that's really special. And this was given to me by a dear friend, James Carter. It's a map of Mobile Bay. And I'm from Mobile, or from a little town near Mobile. And so that's always meant something to me. We were at dinner one night years ago, and I told him about it. I said, I didn't buy it, but I really liked it. And I collected maps. And so I went to the bathroom, and he picked up the card where I showed him about the map, and he bought it and gave it to me for a birthday present. Anyway, so again, something that means something to me that came from a special friend. I come home every day and it makes me happy. There's just an abundance of natural light, which makes me happy. I can see out of every wall that I turn, there is a view to something green outside. And it has a real connection to the landscape, and I really love that. You know, I grew up in the South, so we spent our summers outside. When I was a young kid, I can remember building little cities in the sand under humongous oak trees with my Matchbox cars. I think the connection to the outdoors is what I love, the volume of the spaces, and that we had this wonderful opportunity to live here. Now let me take you upstairs and we'll go to the primary bedroom, where it's like a tree house. This is the primary suite, the entire level. Not that it's that large, but the entire level is devoted to our bedroom and dressing room and master bathroom. So we'll go into the bedroom now. This is the primary bedroom. One of the first pieces that I bought that was sort of the mid-century era were these ram horn lamps, which I was so excited about because I love horns. And it turns out they're resin, but I didn't know that at the time. But I still love them. They're beautiful. I mean, they're great duplicates of something real. These are some of the pieces that I had made with the pencil reed, rounded the corners here, and you can see up close the little brass nail heads that I used there. That's a pair of chairs. Paulo Buffa was the designer of these chairs, of the same period as all the others, but they're wonderful chairs that we found at the Paris flea market also. And yeah, they were really special. So brought them back, had them reupholstered, yeah, so that's about it for the primary bedroom. And then of course some of the boxes that are all over the house. of the 40-something boxes. But let's go into the dressing room. Well, I think this house had a soul before we got here. We took that soul and added to it to make it special, but it was already special, and it's been very special to us. I think you can take a box and give it a soul. It starts with the people who are living there, and are they loving it? Do you love your box? Do you love your home? What you put in it? If we're building a new home, you know, we start with the materials, you know. I love old materials, which is what I grew up with. And I think that's sort of the seed. You know, I think it takes a really good plan so that things are flowing, not complicated. It takes a client that wants something wonderful, that trusts you and gives you this opportunity. We have a chance to do something wonderful for people, and that's what I really love. And I work really hard to give it a soul. You know, and you feel it when you walk in, whether it's the volume of the spaces, whether you walk into an entrance hall and it's compressed and then it opens up to a large room, or whether it's the materials on the interior. You know, I like for it to be authentic. I'm a pretty casual person, so that's usually how I approach things. I just think it's a combination of the things you collect, the meaningful things in your life, the decoration that we bring to a home or a place. Those are the things that give it a soul. This is our dressing room. Since the entire upper level was devoted to the primary suite, you know, I wasn't too concerned about privacy. So, you know, I had my friend Ken Jones of Woodworking Dynamics build these quarter-sawn oak and glass doors. You know, and then, so this is basically our dressing room, closet along that wall here. And then I'm the bather mostly in the family, but our bathtub. So in the middle of the dressing room. This is a sofa that came from Gallery Half in Los Angeles. It is again a mid-century piece. Doesn't have a name, but there were a lot of cabinet makers that made furniture back then. And it is very similar to a piece by Hans Wagner. Sorry. Oh, this was another great find. This table, this is shagreen, and I think we got it on Cherish, but it was a great buy. I have no idea why nobody grabbed that table up. But anyway, I absolutely love it. But and then we'll leave the dressing room into the primary bathroom. This is the primary bathroom. I just wanted it simple and open. We didn't have a lot of space, so I couldn't put our water closet in a closet. And it's sort of out in the open. So we have these two consoles here, and again, really great light. And I didn't want to do a shower door, you know, so we have to worry about opening and closing it. So we just sort of slip around this glass wall here, and there's a shower. So we have our shower here, our vanities, and the tub, soaking tub there. The cool thing is we have these two little closets built in this opening, this arched opening here. So we have all of our things you don't want to hang out with. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. The cool thing about this house is it's a English cottage really, but it's very pared down. So when we bought it, the windows didn't have any casing, which I love. And we went in and took out the baseboard. So we really kind of simplified things down, pared things down even more. Another reason it was important to plaster, because it's more durable at the floor level. But yeah, so that's about it for this level. So who wears the design pants? Well, Nashmi is very stylish. He has a really good sense of style, and you know, it's kind of a combination. We have to work together because some things I want, sometimes some things he wants. But we're always both looking, so I think it's a really good balance. So you know, I think we both wear the pants. Once we come to our compromise, like our front door, you know, we're happy. And we are always changing things. That's probably me more than Nashmi. I love moving things around and, you know, making sure things feel right. And, you know, I think everything has a place. And, you know, you have to find that place for something. You can't just plop a vase on the table and think that's right. You look for that place. But we both do that. And Nashmi is involved with, you know, really picking out everything. He helps me with fabrics. He, you know, he finds furniture. There was a chest I wanted to build upstairs in our dressing room. Well, he found a sofa he wanted. Well, he ended up getting a sofa. I didn't get my chest. But that's okay. It's beautiful. So I think we both wear the pants, you know. We just have to compromise, and sometimes we get mad at each other, and it's not long lasting, but you know, until we get to that place where we're both happy. Now I would like to show you our courtyard, which is actually the entrance to our home. You'll pass through a gate into this enclosed courtyard that we enclose with a hedge. And we spent a lot of time out here. When we did this, we didn't realize we were adding another room to our house. And so it's been really amazing. And the boys like to hang out here and lay in the sun, and we'll sit out here at our table and read, or I might work. And this table is actually really special. It was done by a Faubois artist. Her name is Diane Husson, and she is from Norfolk, Virginia. And she did this table especially for us. So what she does is she talks to her client, and they talk about what they want, the color ranges, and things like that. And so every table she does is different. They look similar, but they're really different. And we love this table. So that was done by Diane Husson. And these chairs we actually got on Cherish, fairly inexpensive, but again, faux bamboo, which I love. Yeah, so we we play with our boxwoods out here and hang out on this terrace, and the boys hang out on the grass. And then, yeah. Oh, one other thing is the lantern at the front door. I did have that made. I designed it and made it, as well as the one around the corner, and then had the bracket made. A man named Darren Hardman made those, and but we love them. They, at night, it kind of puts a soft glow out here and at the other end. And then this gate was built by Ken Jones. I designed it and he built it for me, and it really becomes our front door. And what it did was, our house is like 30 feet from the street. Not that it's a busy neighborhood, but this really gave us a sense of privacy, but still we're part of the neighborhood, the people walking, we still talk to them and all. It just made another room, and we really enjoy it. The word home, that is where we feel safe. That is a refuge. It's a place we can go to, where we're comfortable, where we're warm, and we feel good. And mostly feel safe. We'll go on a trip, and I cannot wait to get home. I'll love my trip. I never regret it, but that last day I'm just racing to get home because I love it. And it's where I'm most comfortable. It's where I feel safe. It's where my family is. It's where our dogs are, that we treat like people. That's home for me. Home is where the things are that we've collected, and not in a materialistic way, because most things could, they can break, and well, we can find something else. It's not that big of a deal. Now, the dogs are different. When I have workers in our house, if the dogs are here, if they're not at the office, I say, look, if this house burns down, the only thing that matters are my boys.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.